All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to tackle a massive and, honestly, a pretty surprising question today. It all kicks off with something that sounds simple, but I promise you, the answer might just change the way you see your entire life.
So seriously, take a second and think about it. When you map out your day, what pops into your head? Your desk at the office? The car on your commute? Maybe the couch, your kitchen, a walk outside? We all have this mental picture of our physical world, but what if that picture is totally wrong?
Because here's the wild part. The data says that for most of us, the real answer to where do you spend your day is right here. More than 90% of it. You spend it in a non-physical, what you might call an unreal state. Yeah, you heard me. Over 90% of your time is spent somewhere other than what we think of as reality. How on earth is that even possible?
Well, what we're seeing isn't just, a trend of people playing more video games or scrolling on their phones. The sources for this deep dive call it a profound and accelerating migration of consciousness. We are fundamentally changing where we choose to exist, moving away from the tangible world and into this massive collection of unreal ones.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. This suspicion, this gut feeling that the world around us isn't quite as it seems, it is not new. This is not a product of the internet age. Nope. It's a question that philosophers, mystics, and deep thinkers have been wrestling with for thousands of years.
Let's go way back, over 2,000 years ago, to Plato. His famous allegory of the cave basically said we're all like prisoners chained up just watching shadows flicker on a cave wall. We think those shadows are real, but we have no idea about the true forms that are actually casting them. And this idea isn't just in Western philosophy. If you jump over to another tradition, you have the Sufi mystic Rumi, who called our world a veil. It's a lot like the Hindu concept of Maya, this grand illusion that hides a deeper, truer reality from us. The idea is the same across cultures. What our senses pick up is a distraction from what's actually going on.
And then, boom, the idea makes this incredible leap from ancient thought straight into the heart of modern science. When Albert Einstein says reality is a very persistent illusion, he's not just being poetic, he's hinting at what modern physics was starting to uncover about the very fabric of our universe.
So if our senses are tricking us, what does hard science have to say about the solid world we see and touch? Well, this is where things get even weirder. You have to look closer. Much, much closer.
Okay, this is where science just blows our whole perception of a solid world out of the water. Just look at these numbers. Atoms are over 99.999% empty space. That means the chair you're sitting on right now, the device you're watching this on, it's almost entirely nothing. That feeling of solid, it's not actually matter touching matter. It's just the electromagnetic force fields of atoms repelling each other. What you think of as a solid object is really just a force field wearing a disguise.
The physicist David Bohm came up with a really mind-bending theory to try and explain all this. He said our reality, what he called the explic order, is just a projection, kind of like a hologram. It unfolds from a much deeper hidden dimension he called the implicate order, a realm of pure information and potential, where everything is connected. So in his view, our world is literally being projected from a more fundamental reality.
Okay, so we have ancient philosophers and modern physicists all pointing to the same conclusion. Our reality is, in some way, a representation. But how does that explain why we spend so much time in video games and movies and even our own dreams? This is where a new idea, called the red owl theory, comes into play. It tries to pull all of these threads together to explain our behavior. Now, to really get it, let's compare it to something you might have heard of, the black swan theory. Black swan says the world is real, but totally unpredictable things can happen. So imagine a turkey that's fed every day for 1,000 days. It thinks the farmer is its best friend, until Thanksgiving. That's a black swan event for the turkey. The red owl theory, though, it goes a step further. It says there is no turkey, there's no farmer, there is no Thanksgiving. The whole thing is a dream. See the difference? The focus isn't on preparing for surprises inside the system. It's on realizing the whole system is just a representation.
I know this all sounds super abstract, but let's bring it back down to earth. Let's return to that very first question we asked. Through this new lens, let's break down where your 24 hours actually go. And the results are pretty startling. So when we actually look at our waking hours, this huge migration is undeniable. Half of your day, a full 8 hours, is probably spent doing digital work. Then on top of that, we spend nearly 5 more hours consuming digital stories on social media, TV, or in games. So when you add all that up, the time we have left for what we used to just call living, direct, unfiltered interaction with the physical world, it shrinks down to just 90 minutes a day.
And our investment in these other worlds is just staggering. It's not just our time, it's a massive economic force. The Wizarding World franchise, it's generated almost $35 billion. The Lord of the Rings, almost $20 billion. We pour unbelievable amounts of money, creativity, and labor into building and living in these carefully controlled fictional metaverses. So why do we do it? The Red Owl theory suggests we do it because we find more meaning and control in the representations we can shape than in the real world we can't.
Okay, let's put it all together now. Once you factor in the internal world of your sleep and dreams, the virtual world of your digital work and internet use, and the fictional worlds of entertainment, the final number is just mind-boggling. We spend only about 1.5 hours, that's less than a tenth of our entire day, in what the source material calls primary actual reality. Over 90% of our existence is spent in a representation of some kind. So maybe this great migration into the unreal isn't really an escape from reality. Maybe it's an instinctual search for a reality that makes more sense to us, one we can actually shape and understand. It suggests that on some deep level, we might already know that this physical world is just one story out of many. And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. If our reality really is a story, a kind of persistent illusion, then the most important question isn't what's real, it's what kind of story do you want to live in?